guys, my name is Morario, as you guys all know, and I am a victim of the 21st century. And because of that, I feel like there's a lot of things that I don't really understand the way that I should, and I think there's a lot of things that I also understand better than a lot of past generations, but one of those things that I want to talk about today is, raise your hand if you've ever heard of love. Anybody? Everybody! Awesome! Okay, raise your hand if you think that you talk about it, or think about it, or hear about it, or interact with it, or experience it at least once a day. Me too. Okay, so I think it's pretty obvious this is like a really, really prevalent topic and issue in our lives and our culture. And when I started thinking about like my initial thoughts with this, the first thing I thought of was like Valentine's Day and little heart stickers and like Ryan Gosling like jumping into Rachel McAdams' arms and like all that whole thing. And then the next thing I thought of was things that I love. I thought of saying like, man, I love Orange is the New Black, or I love bacon, or stuff like that. And then I started thinking about just times that I say it, like when I hang up the phone with my mom, or when like my best friend says something stupid or silly. And I noticed that all of these different definitions that I find myself like using love, they all consider as an emotion, which of course it is. But I think that it's more than that. There's this idea of whether love is a noun or a verb, and it's both. But we tend to use it mainly as a noun, as a feeling, as something that we yearn for, or have, or experience. And even when we do use it as a verb in like an English sense, like, wow, like I really loved that concert, it's still, we're still referring to like an emotion, we're still referring to how we felt about something. And I think that's really interesting. And I've felt that way for like the first 20 years of my life. And then I read, this is a book called Love Does by Bob Goff. And this book like completely changed like how I view life and love. And he wrote a whole book about it, so he could probably say it better than I can. So I'm just going to read a really short excerpt from this book to give you guys an idea of where my perspective came from. So it says that the world can make you think that love can be picked up at a garage sale or enveloped in a Hallmark card. But the kind of love that we're talking about here is a costly one because it involves sacrifice and presence. It's a love that operates more like a sign language than being spoken outright. It's a brand of love that doesn't just think about good things or agree with them or talk about them. It's the kind of love that reinforces the simple truth that continues to weave itself into the tapestry of every great story. Love does. So pretty much the idea within this book is that love does things. It doesn't just, love doesn't feel, it doesn't procrastinate, it doesn't talk about things, it doesn't think. Like love literally does things. So this is Bob Goff, he's the author, and he has a school and an orphanage in Uganda, so those are like, that's what's going on there. And then when I read this book, it changed my perspective on life and loving, but it also changed my perspective on the summer, because I read it in January of 2013. And so I'm a Christian, and so there seems to be this like really weird, like unspoken, like Christian rule that if you're in college, you're like, you have to go on a mission when it's summertime. And I really resented that because A, it felt forced, and all of the options that were being presented to me felt very unnecessarily structured. Like I didn't like the idea of being contained to a certain spot or type of person or number of days or budget and stuff like that. That just didn't interest me, especially after reading that book. And most of all, I didn't like the idea of being dependent upon an adult or a leader or an organization or a church. And I thought if we really wanted to love radically, we should just go out there and do it. And so that's essentially what me and 4 of my friends did. We did this thing that was called Mission Road Trip, which is pretty much just like 5 college students getting together in this really, really shitty van and just like driving east for 8 days. And we just hit whatever cities and just did whatever it was that we felt compelled to do. And the goal wasn't to like shove pamphlets in people's face or scream at them on the streets. It was literally just to like be with them and love them. And so that's something that I did this time, or last summer. And we started in Indianapolis, and we went to Columbus, Pittsburgh, New York City, and Willimantic, Connecticut. And like I said, in the span of 8 days. And so we did a lot of things. We washed cars for the American Red Cross. We worked at a soup kitchen in Brooklyn. And we went to this like art district in Columbus, and we just went down the streets and like encouraged the people that were doing the art and telling them that they were doing a good job and that they should keep going. So those are a couple of things that we did. But I think that one of the things that we did that most describes the kind of love that I think is really impactful is something that we did in Pittsburgh. So here is our team. This is our first full day on Mission Road Trip. This is in Pittsburgh, and this is right early in the morning. So you can see that we're eager, we're young, we're ready to just go out there and love people, and we were very, like, in for quite a treat. We didn't really know what we were doing. So one of the first things we did, we were just walking down the streets and we were waiting for love to present an opportunity to us. And we were looking like, oh, maybe there'll be like an old lady wanting to get across the street or something like that. And we came across this big church and it had these like huge stone steps and it was just like flooded with homeless people. And there was just so many of them. And of course we all looked at each other. It seems like the perfect opportunity, but there were so many and it was our first day and we were just, our shyness got the best of us and we were intimidated by that. So we kept on. And we ended up walking around Pittsburgh for like 2 or 3 hours and just like really did nothing. We like sat in the park and played guitar and tried to talk to people and went to the market, but essentially we like were very unsuccessful and it was really discouraging, the lack of love that we were able to give. So after talking about it, we decided to go to McDonald's and buy $30 worth of McChickens and McDoubles and French fries. And we decided to go back to that church and just like hang out with all those homeless people and feed them. And after we fed them, we ended up just like sitting with them and just hanging out. And so we played music and we heard their stories and we just talked to them. And we didn't tell them what they were doing right or wrong. We didn't tell them what we believed. We just sat there and hung out with them. And I think that is a kind of love that is really rare and also really cool. So like I said, one of the things that we did was played music. So hopefully you can hear it. So while I was searching for videos and pictures to use for this presentation, I was really pleasantly surprised to find this clip, because the lyrics there in that song, that's Hallelujah by Jeff Buckley, if you guys don't know it, and the lyrics are, "Love is not a victory march, it's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah." And I just thought that was so cool. I didn't plan that. It was just really cool finding that and seeing how applicable that is to what I'm talking about. Because I think we tend to think of love as being really, it's like unicorns throwing up rainbows, and it's this really happy thing, and I think that love may exist, and that's awesome, but I think there's a really special kind of love that is just, it's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah. And this day, it was sitting on the cold concrete, and just hanging out in a broken world with broken people, and eating shitty food and playing music. So that's what we did here, and this guy right here, his name is Blaze. And he was homeless he lived on these steps of other guys for a couple years, and then he actually got out of it, and so he had a job and an apartment. But he would still come back and hang out with them at night, which first off is just adorable. But it was really cool to see, we went on this trip to try to give and give and give, and it was really, really cool to see what we received from that. And one of the things we received is just wisdom and care and knowledge and stories, and Blaze is a great example of this. So here's a video of Blaze talking. And so that's like a 15-second excerpt of an 8-day trip. And that's what we received by trying to live this way. And so like I said, it's 15 seconds, so it's I think that speaks a lot about what we received from it, what it means to live like that, and what that happens in return. So that's what we did in Pittsburgh. That's I think is a tangible example of the kind of love that we should give. So I came back from a missionary trip, and my pastor here in Muncie, he was like, "Katie, I think that's really great that you did that, but why did you have to leave Muncie to do it?" And I kind of felt stupid because I realized that so much of my yearning to do this was built in the novelty of the trip. And what really the truth is, you can live like this regardless of where you are, or if you read a book, or what you believe, or who your friends are, or if you're on a road trip or whatever. Regardless of who you are, you can turn love into an action. And I think that is a really, really, really cool thing. And so I want to leave you guys back to this thought. My friend Bob, and this idea that love does. And so I've given you examples of things that love does. Love sits, love eats, love dances, love plays music, love does. And so my final question to you is, what do you do? Thank you.